Put, and Canaan. These are the descendants of Ham first went into the Middle East. These descendants of Ham are the first people that actually dwelled in the Middle East, that like the Middle East that we know today, and they were exterminated or driven out by the sons of Shem. So it's the sons of Shem that drove them out, and these are the people that actually populated what we know as a present day African. So we can see that we are from Africa, we are from the descendants of Ham. That's the second, I believe that's the second born of, that's the firstborn, that's the second born, yes. That's the second born of Noah. So we're in African Nigerians, be it you're a Ghanaian, be it you're a Cameroonian, we are actually from the descendants of Ham. And verse 9 says, and the sons of Cush, Sheba, Havilah, and Sabbath, and Ramah, and Sabbatachah, and the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. And the Cush begat Nimrod. This is believed that Nimrod is believed to be that lead the first organized rebellion against God. You can see how the genealogy of man came, and these are the same people that God created in his image and his likeness. And you can see that even from the time in past in memoria, you can see that man has actually been rebelling against God. The rebellion we see in this present day is not just something that is new. It actually came even from the days of the sons, that's the grandsons of Noah. And you can see that Nimrod is believed to be the one that first led rebellion against God. Let's look at verse 11. Let me conclude that part, verse 10. It says, he began to be mighty upon the earth. You can see that most of the people that actually stand in a standpoint of rebelling against God, questioning that which is obtainable, in the present day, civilization which we are, is that you see that once you move, there's a movement against God. There is always a rebellion. There's always a rebellion. When there's a movement of God, there's a rebellion. And people that seems to be moving against God always gain more attention. They gain popularity. Just looking at that guy, that's Nimrod, fronting as a first man to rebel against man. You can say the last statement given in that verse 10. I said, and he began to become mighty upon the earth. So you see that a lot of people are actually running a lot of contrary opinion to what is written in the scripture that is in the Bible. You can see that they gain more popularity than even the so-called gospel that will preach. So you need to understand that things that are of God don't gain popularity, but things that move against the doctrine and the gospel of our Lord Jesus tend to gain more popularity in the present age and time. And if you look at verse 11, it says, and Mesram begat Ludam, and Ananim, and Lehambam, and Naphtalim. Verse 12 said, and Patsurim, and Kaluzim, of whom came the Philippines. You can see that the verse 2, those two names mentioned there are the people that those are the people that the Philippines actually came from. And the Philippines, as it were, they were a thorn in the side of the Israel, and in some sense of the word, this continued even unto the very hour in the modern Israel. That's why I see that up till now, you can see that the same people that you see that looks as if that they came from this branch of Ham, they became a thorn in the flesh for the Israelites up to the very present day in which we are. Let's look at verse 13. And Canaan begat Zidom, his firstborn and earth, and Jebusite, also the Amorite, and the Girgazite, and the Havite, and the Archite, and the Shinite, and the Arvadite, and the Samarite, and the Hamathite. You can see that in the taking of the land of Canaan, Israel opposed most of these tribes. It was because of their great evil that they were allowed by God to be driven out. They actually, the kind of things they did in the sight of God were things that were so much. They actually committed a lot of evil in the sight of God. That was why God actually allowed the people of Israel to actually take the land from them. If it were not for their wickedness, as far as God is concerned, they are also from the descendants of Noah. They are from the descendants of Noah. So, but with respect to what they did and how they go about doing their things in those days, as you can see that it was accounted in this book, they were evildoers. They were evildoers. And you can see that regrettably, just as we have studied, just as if you've actually read the book of Kings, that second book of Kings, God regretted. You see, there are times that like I was in a discussion with some group of guys today, and we were just discussing literally what happened, and why is it that most of the time God just still look at the way man is generally, and God still overlook a lot of things that happen in our life. And we look at, you see, God actually created us a free will being. That was why He created us in His image and in His likeness, and after His likeness. That is why you can see that it's always very, very difficult for God to actually force you as humans to do things that are contrary to your own will. As humans, we have our own free will. That was why God actually had to advise us that we choose life and not death. That we choose life and not death. So you need to understand, as humans, we have free will. We have the willpower to choose what we want to do and how we want to go about doing it. Let's look at verse 17. And the sons of Shem, and Elam, and Asher, and Aphazad, and Lod, and Aram, and Uz. You can see that if you look at that Uz, that is where Job actually came from. That's where Job dwelled in. Job dwelled in Uz. And you can see that in Job 1, verse 1. You can see that in Job 1, verse 1. That was where Job dwelled. And if you look at, let's just read it. And Hall, and Gedar, and Meshech. And these are the sons of Shem, ultimately overran the Middle East. These are the sons of Shem that actually took over the Middle East. Those are the people that we can find presently in the Middle East, dwelling in the Middle East. And if you read on from verse 18, it says, from verse 19, it says, unto Eber was born 2 sons, and the name of one was Peleg, because in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. So according to history and genealogy of these descendants of Shem, particularly the son of Eber, I beg your pardon, I said Eber. Eber, you see that it was believed that at the time, in the distant past, all the continents of the earth were joined together until they actually came together and said they wanted to build a Tower of Babel, and these are the stories you all know. But I don't want to bore you with all the stories. So you need to understand that not until then, during those days of Peleg, which was about 4,000 years ago, the continents were divided. That was when the continents were divided. You can see that in Genesis 11. It's something you can see during the building of the Tower of Babel. Those are the days which what's his name now? Peleg was born, and those are the days which the earth was divided into different culture, into different languages. And let's read from verse 20. That's chapter 1. It says, Joktan begat Almodad, and Shelep, and Azamalat, and Jerah. Verse 21 says, Hadoram also, Uzal, Dikla, and Iba, Abimel, Sheba. I'm in verse 22 now. Verse 23 he says, and Ophir, Avila, Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. And the line of Shem to Abraham. This now giving us that you see that Shem now, as it were, was a lineage in that of Noah that Abraham came from. So it is now being narrowed to Abraham now, from Shem now to Aram, from Shem to Abraham. And you can see that if you see from Shem, you now have Arphaxad, Shelach, Eber, Peleg, Reu, Sherog, Noah, Teraz, Abraham, the same Abraham, and the same Abraham. And you can see that you can now see from verse 28, you can see that the sons of Abraham, that the sons of Abraham, which is Isaac and Ishmael. Isaac, though younger than Ishmael, is placed first as the legitimate heir. That is why you can see that, when God actually promised Abraham that he was going to be father of many nations, that he's going to give him his own son. That was why, even though Ishmael came, you can see that in this genealogy, as far as God is concerned, from the divine standpoint, Isaac was actually put first in the divine genealogy. Even though Ishmael came first, in the divine genealogy, Isaac was first in the sight of God. That was why you can see that the sons of Abraham, according to 28, you can see that Isaac was mentioned first before Ishmael, even though Ishmael came, because Isaac was the promise from God. So that was why he was first. If you look at the sons of Ishmael, now, that's from 29 to 31, it says, these are their generations, the firstborn of Ishmael, Nehobat, then Kedar, and Abdel, Mibsham, Misham, Duma, Massa, Ada, and Tema, Jetom, Neptash, Kedama. These are the sons of Ishmael. Even though Ishmael, Abraham's son, through Agai, had 12 sons, and did Jacob, they were also the heads of 12 tribes, marking 24 tribes which descended from Abraham through Abraham's two sons. You can see that even though Isaac was just the only son, but Ishmael, as it were, to have 12 sons, and those are the 12 tribes that came out of Ishmael, and also 12 tribes came out of Isaac, which actually came from that of Jacob. You can see that the descendant of Abraham and Keturah, and the sons of Keturah, Abraham's concubine, she bore Simran, Joktan, Midian, Ishbak, Shua, and the sons of Joktan, Sheba, and Dedan, and the sons of Midian, Ephan and Ephah, Hanok, Abida, Egda. All these are the sons of Keturah. I think we'll just take a pause there, so that because basically, if you look at the Chronicles, it's actually give us a line by line on how from Adam to the second Adam. You can see that if you look at from the genealogy that we just read, it started with Adam, Seth, from Seth to that of Noah before the great flood. Then after the great flood, you can see Shem, you can see Japheth, you can see Ham, and you can see from all the continent of the earth where everybody actually came from before it was now narrowed to Shem, from which Abraham came from, and he now narrowed it from Abraham also to Isaac, then from Isaac to Jacob, then from Jacob to the 12 tribes, which we'll be seeing later on. It's just good for us to know where we came from, and to know where, because when you know where you're coming from, then you know where you're going through. Because basically, it's just like me now saying I want to embark on a journey that I'm going to the United States of America, and I say I want to go through Niger. That is, I don't really know where I'm going. Even though I know where I'm coming from, I don't really know where I'm going. So because if you want to go through that route to the United States